Okay. Hello, 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 good people. Welcome again to the Earthseed Black Family Archive Project Ancestral Reparations Cohort closing ceremony. For about 9 months, I think, the nine of us, nine of you all, 10 including me, have gathered and prayed and played and meditated and um, was able to breathe some life into our own journeys through our family history. The ask was that we would come together and do some work, some get curious and get interested in what was happening in your family, to archive any assets that you may have, to do some oral history, with this viewpoint of what will this information tell me about what reparations would mean, not just for me, not just for those currently living in my family, but also for my ancestors. You all have been brave. You all have been just so generous with your stories, with yourselves, and with everything that you and your family have to offer. And I just want to start by saying thank you so much. This closing is really just an opportunity for us to share in multiple ways, in a plethora of ways, what has that time meant for you and what were you able to create from that time? For some of us, that creation looks like creating an actual board game. For others, that looks like creating visual art that depicts, our imagination and our thinking about what would be possible if our ancestors had these resources and had this time. And for some of us, that creation is mental, that creation is intellectual, that creation is spiritual. And we're really sitting with questions and grappling with questions of what does it mean to know ourselves, know our ancestors, and think about reparations. Our time today will be spent hearing from members of the Ancestral Cohort, showing us what they want to share with us from their journey. We will close out with a larger group discussion, just really recapping our time together, recapping how we're thinking about reparations as a movement. And hopefully, we'll hear from folks thinking about where they want to go next with this work. And then we'll close out with some gratitude for ourselves. Before we came online or before we, started recording, we already called in some ancestors and poured some libations for those ancestors. So we have shown gratitude to the generations before us, as what is represented in Earthseed Family Archive Project. It is a project of gratitude to Black history, to Black existence, to Black truths, because there is no global history without Black history. And there is no Black history without our families. I think a lot of times we think about Black history and we think about the chosen few. We think about the charismatic leader. We think about those whose names are on monuments and who holidays we celebrate. But let's not forget that in those churches was somebody's Black grandma cooking after they had the walk, after they had the march. Okay, let's not forget that some of our great grandparents were also in those march. And let's not forget that if they wasn't marching and they wasn't cooking for the protest, they was making sure that our ancestors survived so that we could be at the march and so that we can gather in their honor. And that is what Earthseed is about. So without further ado, I'm going to call up Kamaria, who will share excerpts from her project. And Kamaria, do you want me to just leave this up for you?
I was gonna say you can. I don't have anything outside of the slide, so
Okay.
that works for me.
I'm gonna leave this up for you.
Perfect.
And then I'm gonna pin you so that we can see you.
Okay, and I'm gonna do my little stopwatch so I don't go over my 10 minutes. I respect everybody's time. So thank you so much. I'm just feel so full to be here with y'all, and it didn't cross my mind that it's been 9 months, which feels like it flew by. So really honored for that as well. So my project is called Shoot Goes the Ladder. And I have my little artist statement here to the left. I'm going to go ahead and read that out loud. And then from there, like segue into process and experience and all of that. But Shoot Goes the Ladder is a showcase of the lessons learned from the intimate lives of my ancestors through the medium of snakes and ladders, also known in the US as shoots and ladders. Growing up, board games and card games are a major part of how my family connected with one another as we laughed, cried, screamed, fellowship, and made memories, both good and bad. There was literally a Christmas where taboo shut everybody down. Like people went home, people were mad. So we took games really seriously. Board games are some of our earliest lessons in strategy, problem solving, and creative thinking, which is why I felt like it was a perfect metaphor to think about life in this theme of our cohort of reparations. This particular board takes a twist in the classic game by showing the various ways my ancestors fought for healing and wholeness by exploring the following questions. What do they need to not only not only survive, but thrive? What would have reparations look like for them, right? In the actual material conditions that they lived? How might we create living rituals and monuments to honor them? This board game is a glimpse into the beauty and complexity of their lives and their lived experience of our never-ending family ties through lessons shared across time and space, both in the physical and the spiritual. And then I just have this, may their stories, their histories, legacies be roadmaps for Black folks in the now and in the future who are accessing love, healing, care, and liberation. So I went all across the world and back trying to figure out how I wanted to like represent my time in this cohort. And something I kept thinking about when it relates to reparations is how reparations are needed on this micro and macro level, right? Like, yes, we need the interpersonal healing in our own bodies. We need a world where we can be fully embodied. We need access to mental health care. We need access to clean food and clean water. But then on a larger level, right, we need institutions. We need things, these systems that weren't created to care about us to be abolished. So I was thinking about like, how do I connect this micro need for reparations to this macro? And then filtering that like through my family story, I was randomly thinking about shoots and ladders. This wasn't even actually a game that I played a lot growing up, but just something about the movement of up and down, right? That there's things that take you up and there's things that bring you back down. And so I started thinking like, what in, yes, a larger context of Black history, but what, at least in my interpersonal family history, are moments or lessons that have taken us up these ladders, right? Where we could maybe see the glimpse of this is what reparations looks like, or this is what this person would have needed. And then what are the things that take us back down? So as you can see here on the screen, things that are connected to ladders are like the movement for land back. I think about all of the land that has been lost in my family, just of the people that I know of, and how that's created this sense of, yes, we all have this larger disconnection from being taken away from the homeland, but also like physically in a space that my family has built up, being taken away from that again, right? So land back is something, as we're striving towards reparations, I think is so necessary. Things that take us down the ladder, as you can see right here, there's a ribbon, a teal ribbon that represents sexual violence. Really huge in my family, regardless of gender. It's something that many folks in my lineage have navigated. And so, and that's not even right thinking back during enslavement. These are just the people in the past couple generations. And that's something that slides us down. That's something that moves us away from reparations. There's another ribbon on the screen that is purple, which represents intimate partner violence. And so I'm thinking about all these different ways that the trauma that folks in my lineage that has taken them out of their bodies, has moved them away from being able to be connected, has been intergenerationally been passed down. And so kind of hoping that the movement of that gets people to kind of see the web of how all these things are interconnected. And then throughout the board, you just have family photos. Some people who are passed away, who are ancestors, and then some people in here who are still living, in those folks who represent changing the legacy, who have done a lot of the healing work, who are pulling us out of that. So right by 86, the picture to the right is a picture of my mom. And I think she's definitely one of the people who have done such beautiful work in our family that's really restored a lot of the hurt and pain. So she's connected to a ladder because, right, she's moving us up and out of that. I have some pictures sprinkled throughout here of my grandfather who fought in the Korean War. And we know the complicated nature of Black soldiers and war, but that is something, right, that moves us away from reparations. But my grandfather is top here at 99 with his fist up. This is the last day of the war where he's like, I'm going home, I'm getting out of here. And so I just thought that spirit of, I wasn't even supposed to be here, I don't even want to be here, I'm going back home to my people. It was just really moving to me. And his smile on his face was something that never saw him not smiling or cracking a joke. So all these various ways that I feel like lessons and histories have been downloaded into me. Other things on here are people's war cards, my super far back ancestors. There's a couple right by 68. My ancestors who immigrated from Trinidad and Tobago are there, and they have a really rich history of like having come to this country with like money and resources, and then right somehow that dissipated and they lost things. So that's really what I was been sitting with throughout my time in the cohort, is how these things are so interconnected, and then how this could maybe be used as a model in my family of like a game that could actually be played, a way to strategize, a way to teach younger generations about, okay, like you roll the dice, move up so many, okay, who was this ancestor, right? What was their story? And kind of that being a way to provide connection for folks. Yeah, there's lots on here. It's really juicy. My goals for the future is to get this like actually printed. The traditional Snakes and Ladders is actually a game that used to be played in India way before the US, of course, stole it and then made it this like really kind of strange game with like white kids all over it. But it used to be like printed out on like silk screens. And so that's something that I've been debating of like, do I want to make it a hard board game or do I make it a silk screen, and frame it and hang it up? So lots of different ways to move, but I feel really grateful and so much gratitude for being in this space and getting a chance to think more deeply about the legacies that I'm a part of and how that shows up in my own body and what I'm doing. Yeah, to embody reparations, to hold space for other people who are doing the same. So yeah, I will stop there. My little stopwatch says 7 minutes, but I feel like I've been like dumping on y'all for a minute, so I'll stop there.
Not a dump at all. That's amazing. Is there any other final thoughts that you wanted to share? It was very full, but not a dump at all.
Final thoughts was the session that we had with Alexis Pauline Gumbs was so interesting. I remember afterwards, like reflecting and being kind of upset that like my ancestors gave me these like small things. But one of the people who came to me was my great grandmother, and I could see this image of her cooking in her kitchen, and she was wrapping up to-go plates for me in a plastic bag. And I was like, girl, what is going on? And afterwards, I immediately got so hungry. And ever since then, I've just paid attention to ways that I ignore my body's cues for hunger or rest or thirst. And her lesson of like, don't ignore your hunger, I think is a smaller way that I'm seeing how reparations is so needed, right? Like that's not a major, but it's like embodiment, and it's how I choose to live in my body. And so yeah, there's been also small moments like that where I'm like, girl, what does that mean? That's kind of okay. I want something cool. I want this like big revelation. And it's like, no, embodiment and being able to live freely in who you are is a part of that. So smaller thing, but I'll stop there and say thank y'all so much. I've appreciated hearing everyone else's stories, and it definitely inspired me as I was doing my work.
Yay! We can come off mute, give a little woo, woo, woo. Yes, woo, woo. Thank you so much, Kamaria. That was amazing. And we'll have time for folks to ask questions too once everyone present if they want to. Okay, and up we have Jasmine.
Yes. Hello, friends. First, it's so good to see all your faces, and I'm so excited to hear more. And I'm so inspired by the first presentation. I'll also do a timer. I think that's a really smart idea to watch your own time. So what I feel like it has been a winding road to getting to this project, but what I ended up doing, I call it a guidebook for Black time travelers. And so I feel like a lot of this journey for me around the word reparations has been really complicated because I think reparations is such a personal thing, like repair, the heart of it, repair is just so personal. And I think sometimes for myself, thinking about it at like a national or global scale can feel really daunting and really overwhelming. But thinking about reparations from a place of creativity, art, relationship feels super accessible. You know, there's so many ways that we're constantly repairing with each other, that we're constantly receiving repair from the earth, from ancestors. And so one of my dear friends is, there's a lot of bookmaking. And I remembered I took a class of hers like a year ago. And I remembered that. And I was like, you know, I would love to have something tangible that could be handed on across generations. That's something that doesn't exist a lot in my family lineage. Yeah, there's just not a lot of physical like things, items that we've kept across time. And I really would love to integrate that into sort of part of family legacy and family tradition. So she helped me make this book. So I will show you the physical one in front of me, but you're seeing it there. This really beautiful book. So this paper I was called to because of the third eye imagery. I loved the eyes that were on the cover, and just thinking about the third eye, or like the place of wisdom that exists within us, intuition, and how that kind of plays into the Afrofuturist, like, you know, time traveling, spiritual elements that I want this book and this item to really represent. I was really inspired by a book by Alice Walker called We Are the Ones We Have Been Waiting For. I found this quote that's on the screen here a long time ago. I think I encountered it like a year or two before the pandemic started. And I really love this idea that, you know, we heal our ancestors inside of us, that it's inside of us and through our own healing, our own reckoning, and our own relationship building that we heal our ancestors. That's also the inspiration for sort of what this book would be. But essentially, I'm thinking about like, how do we take on the traditions, legacies, and tools that others have done? So like thinking about the Negro motorist green books that were published as ways to keep Black folks safe when they were physically driving from the north to the south, right? Thinking about other, you know, ways in which we've celebrated or documented or created culture and traditions, and trying to encompass that in something tangible that can be handed, photocopied within a family across time. So almost like a zine, but again, zines really, at least in my family history or like in that locus, aren't common. But thinking about other things that were really common or that were a part of like my grandma and grandpa Williams, right? Who like would use like green books to actually be able to travel because they would drive every summer, you know, from north to the south. And so just thinking about how I can be a part of that legacy building, but also make it really creative, dynamic, and just a way for like me to be communing with ancestors and descendants, right, who may not exist yet in physical time and space. So that is sort of the inspiration behind the book. And the idea is to infuse it both with images of ancestors, with poems, with art, with quotes, with things that are helping me heal and helping me connect to ancestors, and then offering that to descendants, whether that be a child of mine, a nibbling of mine, someone laterally, a cousin of mine, someone in my family, to keep building and adding their own imprints and creativity to the book as a way for us to keep communing across time together. So that is sort of the concept of the book. So I just wanted to like give that overview. I think one thing I'll do, I have some time. I wrote sort of like a first letter. So my thought was to sort of, as a way to sort of orienting to descendants, which I also feel like is a huge part of reparations, right? Being able to imagine and believe that we exist in the future and that we are thriving and happy and alive in the future, and communing with those individuals who are not here in the physical world yet. I really wanted to like write or begin to write and think with that in mind. So I wrote a letter or a note to this person. So I'll read it. I think it'll take me less than 5 minutes, but we'll find out as I read. And I hope that it touches y'all. And then I'll be done with my presentation. So I wrote, "Sweet pea always felt like a compliment." Oh, wait, hold on. I said, "Sweet pea. This is what I was called as a child and what I will call you, sweet pea. In my grandmother's kitchen on the east side of Detroit, she would pull a tin can of peas from the cupboard and open them, careful to not let the juices fall over the cap's lid. Each preserved pea would bubble in the pot on the stove, coming back to life after however many months or years dormant in the gray cylinder that contained it. In the ranking of canned food, peas were my third favorite. Corn was first, yellow and sugary as candy with butter melted between each loose kernel. Then salmon, the pungent pink fish that would be unleashed from its container, deboned and transformed into fried croquettes. Peas came next, perfectly round and tiny, soft green pearls who cracked open on my tongue, the sweetest green vegetable we ever ate. Sweet pea always felt like a compliment, a little kiss on the cheek. I cannot remember if my mother or my grandmother called me by that most, but it sings in my memory at the pitch of love. This is your inheritance. The names we call after each other and before each other. The memory of my grandmother's kitchen, lined with wallpaper and lace curtains that danced against the air, whistling through the wind. Each page of this book is a lamppost, a lighthouse, a landmark, something stable to walk over the abyss, a ladder to help you down from a too tall tree, a voice calling out to you from futures past. Sweet pea, follow the trail backwards and around and underneath the thing you think you seek. Add your own instructions, a photo, a poem, a piece of ribbon from a gift you never want to forget. All of this is a map, a code unlocking something. Quote unquote, liberation feels like too small a word. Whether you are related to me by blood or by marriage, by the choice to love or the bond of circumstance, if you say you are kindred to me, this is your inheritance. This is a portal we are building together, visions and memories of what it means to be eternally alive as Black folks, to be descendants and ancestors of people, a people that will never die, that have always existed. You have already begun, keep going. That's my letter, that's my project. Thank you for listening, and I'm open to any questions or thoughts folks have.
Oh my gosh, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I don't know if you have any closing thoughts. That was so full, no pressure. But there'll also be space for folks to engage towards the end too.
I don't think so. Just thank you for listening. And yeah, I'm excited to see what all the descendants and the family beyond the physical and the blood offer this book and offer other books to come.
Thank you so much for that, Jasmine. That was so full. I wanted to check, Rajane, are you safe? Are you in a place? Or do you need?
I'm almost there. I'm like 6 minutes away, but Raina can go in front of me.
Okay, sounds good. So I am going to stop sharing this screen. Wait.
Wow.
Raina, you should be able to share. I'm going to spotlight you for everyone.
I am. Give me one moment. And there we go. Okay. So I proposed the project of working on, I can't see you all anymore, but that's okay. I proposed working on the Generational Archives podcast with my mom, who many of you all may remember is also part of Legacy Earthseed. And so this is an excerpt on us defining reparations together, but through the pictures of family that I archive or harvested from a large archive from my grandfather and great-grandmother. And yeah, so it also incorporates a quotation from Toni Morrison, thinking about rememory and reparations as connected to the interior space. So here we go. Hopefully all things work. So the question is, what does reparations look like to you? Mommy, what does it look like?
Well, that's a very complicated question. And the debate is whether individuals who can claim ancestry from enslaved people should be given a monetary reparations as individuals, or should it go to communities? And so where it will do the most good. I'm not sure I have a good answer to that question, except it would seem like if you are the descendant of enslaved people, the communities that those people came from should be able to dictate how best that reparation is awarded, used, given. And so I think it's such a complicated issue, because what would be beneficial in one community might not work in another community. So it's complicated.
So the premise for me asking this question is against the backdrop of right now in San Francisco, there are a number of proposals that are being considered within the city government, and one of them is around the possibility of a $5 million attribution to every Black resident of San Francisco, and as a part of their reparations movement. And that's received a lot of support. And then there are also people who say that would detract from the community. Let's not just focus on the individual. Let's think about larger initiatives that would actually attract and more Black people to return into San Francisco. So many people have been pushed out through gentrification measures and rising taxes and all sorts of things in the Bay Area, where I used to live for many years. And there's something to be said for that. Another part of me asking the question was, I'm a part of two collectives where I'm learning a lot. One is the Earthseed project, which focuses on reparations, explorations through creative practice. And then I'm also part of Black Water, which is an initiative from Jupiter Performance Studios led by Ebony Noel Golden. And that project is also considering reparations and climate justice and womanist practices to inform creation. So a lot around history and where are peoples from, and what does this, our current reading of the landscape and the landscape within indicate for the future. So that's the backdrop against which this question is arising for me. And of course, as we're talking a lot about our ancestors, and we are the descendants of enslaved Africans, as well as those who unfortunately kept our people in captivity. And that is hard to reckon, of reparations being so tied into our beginnings, the beginnings of our family.
Well, I was sharing with Raina, or reminding her, that when my father died, I got a check from an insurance company, and it was specifically reparations for those penny policies that many African American people used to pay every week. There would be a white insurance man that would come to the house, and you would pay. We called them penny policies, but they were these small amounts. And my parents had policies on themselves, but they also had them on their children. They cashed in all of them once they were comfortable that we had our own insurance, but my one sister, they kept hers, and it was in force when she died, and under the concern that she might not have insurance to bury her. And it turned out they were so wrong, because the work ethic that pervaded all of our experience also was her experience, and she had a policy, and she did leave money to myself and one of my nieces. But those penny policies produced the check that came for reparations, and that's what it was called. Also, I participated in the Earthseed project, and my specific project was called Reparations as Remembrance.
Yes.
And so the ability to take our memories and showcase them and explore them and honor them is a form of reparations as well.
And see, that's where I would go with reparations, that reparations is not just a monetary individual amount, although I think that it should be that too.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
And if someone does not want to receive reparations, they can always say, I don't want to receive this. I want this to go back into the community pot in some way. But I think that those who are the descendants of enslaved Africans should be able to receive some wealth that they can pass on, that we can pass on to our peoples, or just use right now for a really great vacation, whatever it is, but use it as this extended gift from our ancestors for the incredible labor that they were forced to endure. So I think that it should be individual. I also think that it should be community oriented, of like, there are incredible organizations like the East End United Community Center in Western Pennsylvania. There are community centers that have been deeply rooted and supportive of Black communities for so long. And I'm thinking about Black Lives Matter chapters across the country. I'm thinking about organizations that put bail forward for folks who cannot afford to get out on bail. And so poverty is the thing that is preventing them from their freedom. Give them some funds so that they can support people who also probably shouldn't be in jail in the first place. So there's that. And I think reparations looks like education, right? I look at the landscape with all these initiatives that are banning books, that are removing any discussion of Rosa Parks in connection with race. Oh, she made a choice to get up on the bus just because she thought that was the right thing to do. No, Rosa Parks resisted, was actually part of a long committed protest effort because of racism. The fact that has been removed from a history book, that is the absolute opposite of what reparations should look like. Reparations look like telling the full story. It looks like, and the full story also speaks to the humanity of our peoples. It speaks to resistance and humanization. It speaks to also the opportunity to rest. I would love for reparations to be like, I work, and for anybody who identifies as Black, to be like, I'm one of one in this predominantly white institution, and today I'm going to take a reparations day. I'm going to take a day of rest, and y'all going to pay me my money because we've built that into the charter of this company, that I can take this day, and on that day that I have taken this day because I need it, you have clearly said something that has triggered my response to your racism. Everybody just takes a break and says, we need to do some work today. Clearly, we need to read a book and have some discussions because somebody is taking their reparations day. I want that to be a part of reparations. Maybe I'm moving too far, but I don't think I'm moving far enough. And that's a clip from Generational Archives, which I love, and I wanted to capture to the title from my mom's presentation to continue this legacy, this lineage of discussion between us, and share her voice and this new pictures of our family. And I really appreciate being able to be a part of this community, vibrantly a part of this community.
Yay, that was brilliant. Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Raina. I don't know, that was so full. If there are any closing thoughts that you have that you want to share, the chat has been popping too, so y'all make sure y'all go back to the chat. But anything else that you wanted to close us with? Raina, can you hear us okay?
I can. I have no closing thoughts except to subscribe and share if you liked it.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Woo, this has been juicy so far. Okay, Rajane. Hey, you are up. Did you want to share your screen?
Can you actually share
Yeah.
for me? Thank you. Peace, y'all. I'm so excited. I'm finally on the camera so I can see y'all and y'all can see me. Um, So I am happy that Raina went first because I pulled a quote about rememory from Toni Morrison. So I think it's just like, so I think it's a metaphor of our full experience in Earthseed. It's just like all the ways in which we are connected. And we know that our ancestors conspire with each other to show us just how connected we are. In the current moment. So I'll read the quote and then kind of say some things and some reflections. So I used to think it was rememory, you know, some things you forget, other things you never do, but it's not. Places are still there. If a house burns down, it's gone, but the place, the picture of it stays, and not just in my rememory, but out there in the world. What I remember is a picture floating around out there outside my head. I mean, even if I don't think it, even if I die, the picture of what I did or knew or saw is still out there, right in the place where it happened. And I think this quote kind of just like so perfectly sums up my experience going back to Lexington and going back to Holmes County to find the land that my great grandma, with my fourth great grandmother and grandparents owned at the time where it was so revolutionary to own. So we're talking about you know, just like the idea of 40 acres and a mule and how that was one of the earliest kind of like forms of reparations, or the earlier forms of what we thought would be reparations, and the possibility of that, and to know that my fourth great grandmother had 200 acres, right? And the fact that it's still in the family today is a great feat. I think it's a glorious feat. And so you see me on the land with my Black women are the future shirt. And I just feel like that that all goes together, right? Like, I think even in the past, Margaret was a Black woman of the future. It was an incredible feat. It was not common. And I also just came back from a Juneteenth celebration where an elder in the community was talking about how our stories just like connect to the white folks in the space. And one second. I'm sorry, y'all. So just came back from a Juneteenth event where he talked about just like how in his family, he lives in a freedman community, or what was a freedman's community. And so even today, just how a lot of land and homes and houses were displaced and burned down and not there and no longer exists, right? But the history of the space cannot be removed or cleared, right? Even if in those physical things are no longer there. So as I was standing on that ground, I imagine like this is where my, you know, where Margaret and Meredith was coming home to, right? And this is the land where they grew food that sustained you know, everybody, for me to be able to be here and stand on this ground and return to something, right? And so I walked the same paths that they walked, seen the same things they did. And I feel like that in and of itself was a full circle and magical and fulfilling, and reparations and resistance to say that, no, I exist in the future. I am the future that exists, right? And there will be a future after me. And so I was really, really excited about that. And like Joshana said, this is not goodbye. So this is not my final project. And so I'm super excited for when I put the video together of you all, you know, for you all to see the full experience and see all of the land that existed. And so this is also a book of me looking at, it's a picture of me looking at a book that is all the like property records. And these are property records from 1880 that I'm like looking at and touching, that was just like in the back of an office somewhere. And so like, I know what my people were doing, you know, on July, whatever, in 1885. Like, that's so dope. That I just like have that documentation, like, oh, y'all were here and y'all were looking at this book. And here I am in 2023 looking at this same book and finding our name there. And so I think just in so many ways, it's cemented that we existed in the past for real. And we exist in this moment. And I am, the great, great, great granddaughter, right, who exists in the future, right? And I'm going to have a great, great granddaughter that exists in the future. And so I think that full circle in that journey is something that I'm just so happy to be able to have documented and so excited to share with y'all because we've shared so much at this point. So as it pertains to reparations, I think this group is reparations. I think it's a form of reparations. It's a form of repair and healing. This is the most that I've found out about my family as I've tried over the years. This is the most. I wouldn't have gone on this trip if it were not for one, Earthseed, and then two, you all's encouragement. And so I think it's important, right, to understand who you are and your individual history, but you never do that outside of community. And so I think community is a part of the repair and has to be a part of the conversation as it pertains to reparations. And of course, I think all of what Raina said, I don't think it's an either or. I think it's a rest. I think it's give me an individual check. I think it's invest in the community. I also think it's preservation of our community. And so I think we should definitely be preserving the past places in the land. And I feel like we want to protect those things, especially in the time and climate that we are in now, but also for the future to have something to come back to be able to return to. So with that, thank you all. I'm so privileged and honored to be a part of this cohort of giants, of thinkers, of just like incredible, incredible folks with which, the English language cannot even, right, like accurately and fully describe. And so I am so, so full and so, so honored to have been chosen and to be able to contribute and be in community with y'all. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Rajane. That was beautiful. And there will be an Earthseed showing of your short film. So we will be in communication about that. And I will make sure that we all get to see that. Any closing thoughts? Any final words?
Y'all are giants. I am inspired by y'all. Like it's incredible. It's amazing. All the work that y'all do, all the thoughts that y'all have thought and shared. It's just an honor to be amongst giants. Y'all are amazing.
Amen. Thank you so much. I think that's it for this slide, right? So I'll stop sharing. And then we'll have, I think, Hawana, you're up. And I'll stop sharing. Okay, and Hawana, do you need anything from me? Okay.
Thank you. For some reason, I could not unmute myself. I think it's sweaty palms. Hello to all of you. I agree that this cohort is its own form of reparations. Today, I'm going to share with you my thesis work, which has intersected with this fellowship time together. And I'm calling this presentation Photography as Reparations, Reconstructing a Mixed Black Family's Photo Archive. Okay, not sure why I can't go to the next slide.
Try clicking the actual screen.
Ah, there we go. Okay. So I want to tell you that the work started because for many years I have been frequenting eBay and antique shops. And whenever I would find photographs of Black people, I would always buy them. And I was calling it the Black Faces Reclamation Project. And for a long time, I had no idea what to do with those images. I just knew that I couldn't leave them in the shop to meet an uncertain destiny. The photo on the left of the blue man and the photo on the right of the red woman are two images that came from that work. The man was listed as being a Black miner, but in the photograph, he was surrounded by many white men, and it was obvious from the timing of the image that he was either formerly enslaved or recently enslaved in the image. And so I was like, nah, we're gonna pull him out of that. So I pulled him out of that image and replicated him essentially from a memory of my daughter's visit to a Chinese tomb where there was an entire army of clay soldiers that accompanied the king upon burial. And so while he is not clay, in my mind, replicating him made him strong, gave him an army to fight whatever the battles may be. The bird that's in the photo with him is a bird from Sinofo culture, which is one of my ancestral homelands. And I had purchased the bird and didn't know for a long time that that was one of the cultures that was in my bloodline. And so then I decided to merge the two of them together. And for me, this became a metaphor for building my army to get to know my African self. The image on the right is an image of an unnamed woman who was with a group of other people traveling from Oklahoma during the Dust Bowl period. And because my great-great-grandmother came from that area and we had no photographs of her when she was young, I decided to name this woman Emma, the same as my great-great-grandmother. Behind her, you see a picture of an old Morton's salt box. And salt in my Louisiana culture is very important. It was used ritually when you purchased a home. You would walk around the foundation of that home and lay salt as a purification way of keeping evil spirits out. It was also, of course, used in cooking, but it's also used in preserving foods when you could not afford refrigeration. It was part of the process for drying out foods. And so Emma from Oklahoma, having the salt behind her is a way of affirming, preserving, and also cleansing. This is an excerpt from the collection of poems I wrote for the project. Your genes, my genes, your genes, a historical pollutant. What does that make me? Some kind of evidence. And that comes from when my father first found out about the significant amount of white ancestry that he had, and presumed that it had all come from forced copulations. Later, he discovered that his grandfather's grandfather was in fact a white man who had come from England by way of Ireland and had come to America during a period when white farmers knew that slavery was nearing its end. And so they went after poor Irish people who were desperate for food, and they would pay their passage to come to America and then put them to work on plantations. And so my Sullivan name comes from that man who came to America as a white man. And then after the Civil War, married the woman who became my great-great-grandmother. And they both died within 12 years and left my great-grandfather with no parents. And so he was raised by an aunt. So he didn't know much about their stories, but over time, we were able to piece together documents that told us a lot more about who they were. And what's fascinating is that the great-grandfather, when he arrived in America, was listed as a Caucasian, but it was illegal for a white person and a Black person to marry in Louisiana. And so later on, when we see them with the papers that they had, my great-great-grandfather became listed as a mulatto. And so we don't know why, but we presume it was so that the marriage would be legal, so that there would be no issues for them. After the DNA test, I discovered I had DNA from 17 different nations, and I made a commitment to myself that I was going to travel to every single one of them. The University of Minnesota has a fellowship program to Europe, and so I applied to that program and decided I would start with the European ancestry. This is an image of a beach in Wales, one of the places that my great-great-grandfather had ancestry from, and that has something about being there and hearing that native language being spoken that really hit me in a certain kind of way. But I felt guilty that I was the first person in my family to be able to go back there in nearly 150 years. And I didn't know what to do with that at first. But when I returned home, I remembered that I had thousands of photographs that my father had given me in the form of the family's ancestral album. And I started to take those travel photographs and merge them with the family photos. The first one are my 3 girl cousins standing on that same beach, and hovering above them are magpies, which was the nickname my grandfather had for me. And I decided, well, if magpies are a beautiful black and white thing, we have always known who we were. This has always been a part of our story. Here, I take those same cousins and I put them with West African seagulls and the magpies from England in front of a village in Senegal, one of the ancestral homelands. These are the boy cousins, and they are on that same beach, and there with a sign, Holy Island. I am essentially thinking about our bodies as holy islands, and this black and white magpie as the embodiment of us. This on the left is my great-grandfather, Martin Sullivan, the son of the Irish Englishman, and his son, my grandfather, Henry Sullivan Sr. They are surrounded in this image by one of few cotton fields that I found when I was traveling in Europe, and objects that are stereotypically British that I pulled from sale shop photographs and other places there. My great-grandfather wanted to be a cotton farmer, but the way that the systems were set up in Louisiana, it was impossible for a Black man to farm cotton because you had to have access to the market, and they would not allow the Black farmers to sell in the market. So instead, he raised produce. This is an image of people enslaved, or actually sharecropping on the plantation where my great-great-grandmother's family had been enslaved. And I found this photo in the National Archives and was shocked to find a photograph of the actual people and place where they had been. I pulled this image and I put them instead in an Irish landscape and called it The First Time We Went to Ireland. Here on the left is my great-great-grandmother standing in front of, in Wales, in front of a scene that I experienced where just out of nowhere, hundreds of seagulls started to fly around me. And then I put my father in that same landscape. But notice how when my great-great-grandmother is in the landscape, the bird is flying back as if to say, look back for history. But when I put my father in that landscape, it's flying forward, saying, look forward to the next part of your family's story. Notice my father is wearing a hat that says world's best dad that me and my sisters bought for him. Oops. To the left is my Aunt Kathleen. She is wearing a cameo that is believed to be the only surviving artifact from my great-great-grandfather's family in Europe. It is said he came to America with nothing but this cameo that his mother literally took off her neck and gave to him. When I was in Scotland walking by the Firth Bridge, I saw a woman wearing a cameo. And when I came home and saw this picture, it just blew my mind. So I put my Aunt Kathleen, who always wanted to travel the world but died too young, into this image of the Firth Bridge with a seagull as one of our family reminders of the birds that travel the ocean. This is my grandfather, Henry Sullivan. He was a jokester, a prankster, and he was always a storyteller. And it was frustrating to me. The image at the very top on the left was the image of him that lived in our home. And it seemed ridiculous to me that there were no photos of him laughing, since I always knew him to be a jokester and a laugher. So I ran this image carefully through AI software to generate a series of facial expressions to make him feel like his whole self. And so if you look in the center down at the bottom, that little smirk is the look he often had on his face after he told a joke. And technology helped me to recreate my grandfather's facial expressions. Oops. This last image is my father and his 4 siblings. And I have superimposed them in front of the big house of the plantation where their ancestors were enslaved with a series of birds. And I called this image, "We went to confront them about how they had treated us. They turned into birds and flew away." So again, this whole project is just storytelling, creating the images that were missing from my family story that needed to exist. That's it.
Woo! Oh my goodness.
Amazing.
Whoa. 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 Okay. I mean, that was very full. But any final thoughts? Anything else that you want to close us with?
The only thing I would say is that I began this journey weeping that I did not have what I thought I needed. And now I finished this journey with all of you, realizing that everything that I need is right here and right now. And so it completely changed the way that I inhabited my history once I realized that I just needed to keep looking and I would find it all.
Thank you so much, Joanna, for those closing thoughts on such a full and touching presentation. Thank you so much. Okay. Oh, y'all all right? Because, right, me either.
No, not all right, not all right, not all right.
Me either. We're all on the same page. Good. Awesome. I just want to take this moment first to just do a round of applause for everyone that has presented so far. Thank you for just your genius and yes, your creative and ancestral insight. That was a beautiful sharing, and we're not done. So we are going to switch off into a larger kind of group discussion. And I want this to also be an opportunity to discuss, our own personal reflections of the project, but also if there are any questions, any thoughts that you have for the artists that have already shared. I also want to open the, yes, okay, an exhibit is definitely on my vision board for Earthseed. So you are naming what the ancestors have already dropped into me, okay? So yes, any thoughts, any questions for the folks that have presented thus far? I will definitely start off by saying there are so many themes that I've been capturing thus far around like, what does reparations mean? And I'm going to think about a way to turn these notes into something that I can send to everyone. Because I do think that we are definitely providing a holistic and full answer to this question of what could reparations mean. So I'll pause there. And I will open it up specifically to Conway, Janine, Kanisha, and Ambria, just to get any thoughts or questions that you have. I see Janine's comment. I'm just so full. Yes, very full, very full. And if there are no thoughts or questions for the artists, we can jump right in to the conversation. So the ask was for you to talk a little bit about your own experience with the project, a little bit about how this experience is informing your thoughts about reparations, and if at all there are plans to continue this work in any way. So I'll open it up. Let's start with Ambria, and then you can pass it on to either Conway, Janine, or Kanisha.
Okay, so as has already been spoken into the space, I feel like the biggest gift that I've gotten in this experience is the community. And one thing, you know how like sometimes an amazing thing can happen at a chaotic point in life, and I'm looking at these projects and I'm like, I wish I would have done a project. I wish I would have done this, and thinking about all of these things. But I also can't help but feel that the offering is not only the connection in the community, but the inspiration and the models about how diverse and multifaceted reparations can be. And like, I literally don't, recently I've been working on being very emotionally present, which is a part of like my reparations journey. And so like, I've been listening to all of these, and I know y'all saw me being silly in the chat. Like I wasn't joking, like I was serious. Like at every single moment, I felt like I needed to walk away because the information was so amazing and so heavy and so much to process. And thinking about Juana specifically, this idea that so many of us like miss out on, like myself in particular, like I don't have very many images of like my ancestors and my loved ones, but the fact that I can write them into story and I can give them a container, and like I'm about to lose it, I can give them a container and a context which will not only like allow me to establish that foundation, but have something to pass. Like that's groundbreaking. And it sounds like, it's so funny because it sounds so like, it sounds like such a simple concept, but we have never thought of it, you know, like it has never occurred to me, as you said, that I can start where I am and create a model of what I'm dreaming for. So just using you as an example, all of these projects have been so phenomenal. And so with this time, I have really been like, what reparations looks like for me in this environment, in this space is, as y'all know, I live in Wyoming, and there's this narrative that we don't exist there, or that we popped up lately, we popped up much later, or our stories are solely wrapped in trauma. And I have spent a large part of the last 9 months diving into that history. Some of you know that I had the opportunity to put on an event with the local community college and our state archives, and just talk about the missing elements of Black folks and the Black history in Wyoming. And then like a few weeks ago, I had the chance to go and like hold the census from 1870, when Wyoming was still a territory. And I just happened to open the book, right? And the first page that I landed on, now of course I'm blanking on his name. I'll have to look, actually no, for specificity's sake, give me like 30 seconds to go get his name. No, I remember, it's Barney Ford. It just came to me, yay, okay. So like holding this census of Wyoming before it was a concept of Wyoming, you know, and it was still the narratives, thinking about like those early debates around whether or not that would be a place where enslaved people would be forced, as with so many other places, like knowing that foundation and opening the book and seeing one of the first people in there was Barney Ford, and seeing his M for mulatto in the book, and knowing that he freed himself from enslavement and went on to be a millionaire. and created maybe 2 different like very popular hotel chains in the Mountain West that ended up eventually being burned down. But just being able to sit there and seeing that, you know, his wife was white and his children also had M's for mulatto, of course, and knowing that all of these aspects of identity that were supposed to be denied or overshadowed or unacceptable, they were happening. And he was claiming, like right out the gate, right out of enslavement, he was claiming those things for himself. And so as far as like what I'm doing now, again, is digging into that history and seeing what it's like to have that to offer to my children, that our connection may not be as familial, but it's still global. And where I'm headed next is I want to dive through every single page of both the 1880 and 1890, the 1880 and the 1890 census. And I want to go through and I want to map out the families. What are the Black mothers that were in that area? What kind of listings are we having about the occupations they're doing it? How big were their families? Like just what are the stories? Like there was one, my skin is tingling, I'm so excited. So there was this one lady that I came across, I'm blanking on her name at this moment, but she was being incarcerated for arson. And I was like, go ahead, girl, burn that shit down. Like, just like seeing these specific stories that, like, you know, if a sister burned down something in Wyoming in the 1800s, it was for a reason. We weren't just going around burning down stuff for nothing. And so like taking that model of like knowing that I don't need an excuse, because whenever folks are like, oh, why are you in Wyoming? I'm like, oh, because my husband's in the Air Force, and you know, the complicated legacy of that. But I don't need an excuse of why I'm in Wyoming. We've never needed excuses for why we're anywhere. And I can't wait to uncover all of these reasons and just kind of the larger Black diaspora that has ended up in Wyoming and has been, you know, present in this space. And so hearing y'all's stories and seeing y'all's projects has just given me so many different ways to visualize like that presence, that intercultural relationship, those landmarks, that data. And I'm just nerding out. I'm overwhelmed. I want to hear all of the things everyone's doing all the time. I just need all of the stuff. So yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that and for sharing your joy in that. I appreciate that. Conway, do you want to share?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Jashana, and thank you all for being a part of this cohort. I started the cohort feeling like I wanted to explore all of these houses because I do have family members who owned homes, but there are very few of them that are still in our bloodline for various reasons. And so I wanted to talk about housing and homes, because at the moment when I joined the cohort, I was thinking about becoming a homeowner. And I think in certain ways, am thinking about considering that, but my timeline has slowed down a little bit for that. But I think what I've gotten out of the cohort is, and people have been talking about this, right? Like the personal embodiment of reparations. And thinking about home as myself, like my own person. And so what I'm leaving with from the cohort considering is how to build my own home inside of my own self. Because I think one of the legacies of slavery was to make us into workers. And I feel that that's a legacy that we still have to grapple with, is this notion of our work and being productive. And that's all people want to know about is our work in the system. And I'm knowing that all humans we're more than our work. And so what does it mean for me to live fully, to express, to create? Just use my life differently than just being a worker. I'm like over it. I don't even want to work at all. Like, fuck work. We worked out. We've been working. It's time for us to do something else. And we can do something else. And so this cohort and thinking about what do I truly want to work for, right? Because I could keep being a worker and saving money and buy a house, or I could truly cultivate my own home and be fully human, which I feel like a lot of my ancestors did not get the opportunity to do. So that's what I've been thinking of. Yeah.
Yes, Ashe to your humanity and our humanity and the humanity of your ancestors. Thank you so much, Conway. Kanisha, did you want to share your thoughts? How you feeling? How this been for you?
Very well. It's been very, very well. I'm so in love with this space and knowing that the technology that we have now, it means that those places, they're in all of our homes right now. So it's like so much, it's just so much. And I only prepared to say one thing, and I did want to say a little bit about my experience, but the one thing that I wanted to prepare, and I think I said it before, that I prepared, is that you may not know your ancestors, but they know you. And a lady named Masi actually told me that some years ago, and it really shifted my work around my father wound, because for my whole life, it's always been, I don't know, and for many reasons. And I've had a couple of inclinations of maybe this, or that, but I did have a person who I consider my father that raised me, that, provided a lifestyle for me for a big chunk of my upbringing. And I remember at his memorial, they said, you come from good stock. And I remember being so disconnected from that, because I'm like, that's not my stock, you know what I mean? But cool, great for y'all. Because I was just so disconnected from the stories and, the chatter and the reverence that came from that train of thought. But through this cohort, I realized that I need to bring them to the Met, because that is my stock. I did get raised by this person. That is the imprint that is in my life. And I just want to say, first of all, Joania, you look like a cosmic goddess, Black American, Afrofuturistic. You literally look like something out of this world right in this moment. So I just want to thank you. And the care that I felt, the way I felt heard, the way I felt considered throughout this it's been so tumultuous when I didn't expect that, because I was only looking to explore my maternal side and get my information for my reparations and and like that was my whole vibe. Like really, because I'm into people doing their lineage so they can know. And I luckily already, just by my blessing of my life, is as much as I didn't grow up with a lot of family. I can go back to not unverified, but at least to the early 1800s, easy, like without a problem. You know what I'm saying? And that's just boom, boom, bam, bam. This person, that's what it is, early 1800s, no problem for me, right? On my mother's side. So I was really interested in that, just because that's the only thing I've ever been able to go off of. Here you come with this ancestry. Okay. In my mind, it's mitochondria, so I didn't think that it was really going to open anything about my paternal side. Me and my mind, it's so interesting the way you put up things in your mind to protect you. Because of course, not knowing who your father is really a big deal. But you figure out ways to not really make it such a big deal. And I remember when that lady Marcy said that to me, your ancestors know who you are. I started working on that father wound, bringing my father's ancestors to the mat, and God telling me to stop saying you'll never know. Because I would literally be like, I'll never know. Based on the circumstances of my mother's lifestyle, it's like, how would I know? You know what I mean? It's impossible, right? Back to the mitochondria thing with the ancestry. So one day I'm watching YouTube, and I think it was this new guy that does this. I don't know his name, but it starts with a K, and he has like he's a therapist, and so he does these shows like a Ricky Lake type vibe. But he had this pair on the TV that talked about their ancestry and how she thought she found her cousin, but he ended up being her dad. And when the story came out, it was just so beautiful because the father had one child, him and his wife loved their child so much, and she had developmental issues, so they nonverbal, so she was like grown, and they took good care of her. But he said he always knew or longed or had this imagination about this relationship with this other daughter. They both were shitty sharp. You know what I'm talking about? When they came on the stage, you could just tell they were like father and daughter, and come to find out it was her dad. Okay, so that made me start thinking, like, if she took Ancestry, because that's how they found out, through Ancestry.com, I was thinking if she could meet her dad through Ancestry.com, I could be, then that means that it does pull up your dad's information. So this is around the same time that I'm deciding if I'm going to use, what way I'm going to go with this Ancestry thing. Because when my daughter asked me at 18, she was just like, look, I need to know. Like, I want to know what's up, and at that point, I wasn't prepared to address it, honestly. And even my brother, who I thought we had shared paternal lineage, it was a good chance, his whatever reason, but I didn't know. And I wasn't ready because I was just in the healing process with my mom, and I just couldn't take the results of the implications of what it would have meant if I defined this out right now. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. Not knowing that it might have been hurtful to the man who always wanted to, quote unquote, father me, or my brother who always wanted to be, had that connection with me. I just personally didn't want to hate my mom more. Hold on, I'm burning something. Hold on. Sorry. And so I didn't do it then, but my daughter did the DNA test for her. And so now I'm like faced with this opportunity, and I was ready. So I took the DNA test. I'm a whole half white person. Like, it blows my mind. More than, and it just still, I'm not even able to process it, because to be honest with you all, my mother lives in Ghana. I think I shared that with you guys. She came back to DC because my daughter graduated out of Howard. Whoop, whoop. And I didn't have the intention to share with her, so to speak, but I felt this desire to share with my siblings because they have been in physical fights, emotional issues, with me being this just my complexion. Every day I look in the mirror, why do you look like that? I don't know. Every day it's issues. And my siblings, my brother and sister, who also wasn't raised with their biological father. So it's like, we siblings, I'm gonna beat your ass. Call her white again, I'm gonna beat your ass. It's a thing for my siblings. So I felt the need to share with them. Hey, I found this out. And I'm gonna tell you, I ain't really finished processing how they responded, and this how unusual it was. But I wasn't really ready to share with my mom because of whatever, right? It's a lot, but whatever. I just wasn't really ready to. I didn't really want to include her in that because she asked me, well, can I help you with anything? So I said, yeah, you can help me by getting my brother's father. I'm ready to get the DNA test with him or whatever to verify if that's my dad or not too. So 3, 4, 5 years later, it's just been unnecessary petty. I just didn't want her to have nothing to do with it, right? And based on her lifestyle, like I said, it really was not gonna be like no rekindling or nothing. Anyway, it's just fine, no problem, no big deal. So I don't really have a resolve. Obviously it's ancestry.com, you know what I mean? But who would have knew that if y'all did all your ancestries or whatever on ancestry.com, it'll give you your matches or whatever. So this match that I have is either this person, my father's daughter, my father's sister, or my father's sister's daughter. So me saying I pretty much can know my lineage. If y'all listen, I could not imagine my life if I was thinking I was white, honestly. If I thought my dad was a white person, I would be a different person. Ain't no way around it. Like, I never thought I was white. If anything, not just straight up Irish. Talk about Irish. Not just a straight up Irish part. I mean, I'm literally 23% Irish, and then other things, but 52% based on the genetics. Now, obviously, I believe that culture and upbringing and all that, supersedes and makes me who I am. I'm a Black person, period. But I've always taken this step back. I've been in the background of a lot of stuff. You'll never know. Because I've always felt like, because my phenotype, I didn't want to be that light, bright, delight, rah, rah, rah. But believe me, I've been working in this space a lot since I was a child. Literally on my own, you know what I mean? As a self-directed person on my own, 7, 8 years old, fighting for the people. So I've always been like, I can't really be like in the front, right? Because of my phenotype. But I didn't think it was because I was white, but it was just the fact that I didn't know. And so now I'm 42, I'm a whole half, call me Becky Sue. Look, it's a lot. It's a lot, child. It's a lot. But this space, I know that, like I said, I really wasn't ready. No time in my life. And the fact that I had these, not only strangers, because some, like, obviously I know Janine, we're really good friends and family oriented and all the things. So I'm telling you, me and Janine had off the camera conversations like, gee, I don't need you to hold my hand. Like, this is a much for me to do this with strangers. Like, I'm a very, very private person. But I feel so connected to you guys. Like, I'm so happy to have been able to be ready. I would have never been able to meet this in my life and feel so comfortable. Like, it's cool, like, whatever. I don't have no problems. I'm still, whatever. It's like, only from your reflection, though. Only from your tenacity and your vulnerability. And this cohort is amazing. I just want you to know, like, this is some amazing stuff. Like, every time I tell somebody what I'm doing, I'm like, yeah, and they have more cohorts. I'm gonna tell you all about it. Like, get into this. This is the best thing. Like, I can imagine this being like a screen of, more and more and more people. You know what I'm saying? Because this is such good stuff. So I didn't time myself. Okay, I could have been 20 minutes. I don't know, but I am gonna end. And thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Kanisha. That was so full. I loved everything. There are quotables going off in the chat, so make sure you read the chat because you have definitely been speaking to people. And yes, it sounds like reparations is knowledge, and knowledge has been powerful for you. So I'm so happy that this has been a space to hold you through that finding and knowing. And then I think, Janine, you are our last share of the evening. So yeah, how are you feeling? How has this been? What are you taking with you as far as thinking through reparations?
I am feeling like, have you ever like overfilled a plant and then like it all comes down on your bookshelf on the floor and you're like, oh, that's my work. Like, that's what I'm feeling like. Like, my shit is overflowing. right now. I'm always like real bougie. Like I'm like, oh, my favorite, Black female writer, my favorite Black female artist. I don't even remember their names after right now, because now my new favorites are y'all. Like seriously, like, have you seen Raina's art? Have you seen Hawana's? Like, I don't know. I can't literally, I can't remember their names in this moment. Because I love destructive abundance, because I'm just so cool with what I'm seeing and feeling. I feel like this whole process has been a acceptance of what I never could imagine would be possible. And I do second and agree, Shoshana, the way that I feel like you knew, right? You told us this might not have closure. You told us like all the things. And I signed the things like, yeah, okay. But but I could not have imagined what I would get from this experience. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and then thank all of y'all for being like chosen family in here in this space. So I've been writing a lot, which I hadn't been doing before. I used to think I was going to be, married to Saul Williams and be a slam poet. So I haven't written since I met my man. So I don't know what it feels like to have that life anymore. But the way the creativity and like Ambria said, like the embodiment, I also think like this was simultaneously, this cohort was simultaneous with me starting therapy and like getting body work to try to like embody my body and like have feelings and to combat like burnout and trauma. And so I feel like it all happened at this time for a very specific reason. So I've been writing a lot. So let me tell you what I just wrote. So thinking about like how would I describe Earthseed and this cohort in my time being here is like a projection into possibility. And like atmospheric projection, like on a spaceship, like launching into what possibly can be. What I thought would happen, or what I thought I would take away from this, was limited in comparison to what I really experienced. I did not imagine that my experience would be so sensual. It opened me to experience embodiment and sensory that I never predicted would happen. And communication. So, and then when I think about reparations, I knew initially I wanted to do something around plants in my family, because I have very like visceral memory of my grandparents being in the yard and my mother being in, my mother grew roses, and my aunt has like over 28 species of roses in her garden. My brother grows weed and mushrooms. So like, I just felt like I knew the plants were going to be a major theme in this project. But what I wrote is communication to the outside has deepened the relationship that I thought I was having with the land and nature. Like I never imagined it being so deep in this way. Like my relationship to earth and land has expanded to also being a relationship with like the beings, so like insects and animals and the wind and the trees and the water. Raina, when you were playing your video, I was recently in Tennessee, and there was a part where we were doing like some grief work by the water, and then the way the water was like lapping, I like got mounted, and I was like somewhere else and was like seeing all these different things. And so it was really hard for me to pay attention to what you and your mother was saying, because I felt like it was taking me somewhere else. And so it's just so powerful how like when you all say things, or when I see things that you're presenting, the way that it brings up this rememory in my body, it's just really interesting to me. And so the creativity and the connection to spirit that I'm walking away with is indescribable. Words are coming, and I have to make space in my life to be present and open to receiving these words and writing them down wherever I'm at, because they just come from nowhere. And so you hear people like, yeah, I got this message from the trees. I'm like, you crazy. But no, it really happens, right? If y'all know anything about Sweet Honey in the Rock, you know that song Breaths, and they talk about they got like messages from like the elements. Creativity, something about how the textile, also when I was working on my project as a reminder, my project was, it's kind of, I feel like Jasmine, I know we said we were cousins in the beginning, but I feel like your book would be in my project because my project is a to-go bag, kind of like Laura Olamide created, but for the future. So it's bringing from the past things that my family would need in the future. And it's so interesting because I have a deck of cards in there for divination, but also for games. So Kamari, I need your Chutes and Ladders or Snakes and Ladders. Like I feel like everybody's project would be in that bug out bag. So there was some things about touching the textile, putting the heat or the iron to it, examining the colors and the textures and having the openness to let the quilt create itself. Because sometimes I'll go into making a quilt with the idea of what I want it to look like. But for this, I was just like, I don't know what's gonna happen. It's just gonna develop in itself. And so doing that work, like that time that we had together and the work that I've done since then is like just bringing, like I know that I have these ideas, but whatever is manifested would just be what my people needed it to be. And then letting the work be guided by my emotions and spirit that I didn't think I embodied before this experience. The second question, what does Earthseed, like speaking about reparations? And so I keep having to look at different definitions of reparations because I know the things that have come up to me, like I'll say this in the house, this is my reparational justice, y'all leave me alone. I need to rest. Like this is the rest that I'm getting is exactly, I feel like what I needed. And the reparation work has connected me to, and so many of y'all had said that, Rajane, you said this, and I can't remember, I think it was you, Jasmine, who said this. So I'm sorry if I'm misquoting y'all, but the past, the present, and the future is not linear. You said that too, Shoshana. But I was driving one day and it hit me and I was like, damn, I'm somebody's past. And like the name ancestors that I know were somebody's future, and how like the work that I want to show in my project embodies all of that, all at the same time. And then, so then I wrote down time for me and this experience is like an ancestral extraterrestrial. Like that's how I feel like I'm living in all these different times. And I don't know, maybe because I did like an Ashoka chakra record recently, and I'm like trying to figure out what my past lives were and all of this stuff. But I feel like I'm embodying all these times at the same time. And then like my answer, I said like my ancestors were somebody's future, I am somebody's past. And then I'm so grateful for the DNA test, but I ain't gonna lie, I felt like it was anticlimactic. Like when I opened, I was like, I already knew this. I'm like 99% Mende from Sierra Leone. Like I literally already knew that. I had nothing else on my maternal lineage, like nothing else. And I was like, yeah, I knew this. And I like closed and kept going about my business because I felt it already like in my body. And so I was like, yeah, reparations does not define my freedom, or like knowing, like the receipts don't define how I feel and what I feel from my family. So no, just leave this alone. This is the fire alarm. We need to keep it together. So yeah, so I was like, damn, that was like an example of I just need to lean into what I know is true of myself and where I come from, and I really don't need people's reparations to know what my worth is or what my freedom is. And so that's what I'm walking away with. So thank y'all.
Yes, can I get an amen? Oh my gosh.
Amen.
Amen. Y'all, that was so, hold on, I gotta finish writing this last thought down. Whew. Okay, y'all. As we, first of all, many thanks. Give yourselves a round of applause. Okay, give each other and give yourselves a round of applause. You did that. Everything that you came to do, even if you didn't articulate it, even if what you ended up doing is different than what you articulated, what you came to do, you did. And you did it well. You did it with integrity. You did it as an embodied practice. You did it for the liberation of yourself, of your line, in all directions, across all realms, across all planes. And on behalf of all of those people and on behalf of all of those beings, on behalf of all of those timelines, we just say thank you. Thank you for saying yes to this work. And thank you for saying no to the things that you had to say no to in order to say yes to this work. Ashe, ashe, asheo. As a closing, I want to share some of the themes that came up to this question of what is reparations. And this is what I will share with you all in some type of visual form so that you'll have that. So as we are closing this time, again, not this community, not this container, but just this time, I want us to reflect on how we have held this question of what is reparations? What does that mean for us and our ancestors? Reparations is remembrance. Reparations is remembering. Reparations as healing ourselves in order to heal our ancestors. Reparations as honoring legacies of resistance through the things that our ancestors left behind and the tools that they gave us to recreate. Reparations is timeless. Reparation is being able to imagine and believe that we exist and thrive in the future. Reparations as having access to the food that we inherited, to the food that speak to our culture, to the food that spark memories of joy and connection to home. Reparations as the ability to honor and showcase those memories in history. Reparations is land back. Reparations as access to the past, to the fullness of this present moment, and access to the future. Reparations as access to space, as access to wealth, as access to rest, as access to technology. Reparations is healing and access to the healing technologies that our indigenous ancestors have passed down. Reparations as preservation. Reparations as community and being held and being safe and being encouraged. Reparations as the ability to be emotionally present with ourselves and each other. Reparations is personal. Reparations is an embodied practice. Reparations as being able to build a home within and for ourselves. Reparations as creation over the labor state. Reparations is the space to be human and lean into the fullness of our humanity. Reparations as care. Reparations is knowing who we are, full stop in that knowing. Reparations is possibilities beyond the limitations that our ancestors had to face and beyond the limitations that we may face today. Reparations is relationship. It's relationship with ourselves, it's relationship with each other, it's relationship with our ancestors, it's relationship with nature, it's relationship with time. Reparations is rest, full stop. Reparations is the right and agency to say no, leave me alone. Reparations is all that it is, but it does not define our freedom. Reparations is knowing that our ancestors know who we are and the space to find out who they are. That's reparations. That is how we're defining reparations. And that is just the beginning of the fullness of that definition. Now I'm gonna cry. Oh my God. Y'all, my heart is just so full with so much gratitude for who you are. You were exactly the right people to be a part of this experience. This was exactly the right time to have this experience. I carry you all with me. I full-heartedly believe and trust and will be working towards us to gather again, for us to create space to showcase this work to the world, to our families, to those closest to us, to the people that was on the peripheral watching us do this work. It is within my intention for us to find time and space to be able to bring them into this experience and to share your creation. You have created the next Green Book. You have created, the next understanding and theories around what does reparations mean? What does genealogy mean? You have created new understandings of family dynamics and creating families. And I don't want that to get lost. So I close only to say thank you, and thank you. And that we will definitely meet again. So I'm going to stop the recording. Before I stop the recording, is there anything that anybody else want to say or share for the archive?
Thank you, Joshana, for guiding us, for creating this space, for holding this space, for being the one, for seeing the vision, for inviting us in on the record. And this would not exist without you. You're doing the work of healing. Not stop. We have you. We got you. I just want you to hear that. This is so special. I'm so grateful. And the ripples of healing in my life are because you started this. And so I'm grateful.
Ashe, I received that. Me and my ancestors received that. Thank you so much for seeing us and being with us.